Welcome to Creepy Joe's Horror Show! With special guest, Slip Rick the Skeleton.
It's not my fault the babes like me, man.
Also, Flo!
Perverts.
And don't forget about your legendary loser host himself, Creepy Joe!
Welcome to Creepy Joe's Horror Show. Tonight we have Children of the Corn from 1984.
A young couple is trapped in a remote town where a dangerous cult of children believe that anyone over the age of 18 should be slaughtered.
Now this is definitely one of my childhood favorite movies. This movie, obviously everybody knows it was written by Stephen King. The story was by Stephen King. And in the 80s and 90s, there were many movie adaptations of Stephen King novels. And they were my favorite books, or not books, but movies. Because I wasn't reading books back in those days. I just didn't, wasn't into that. I was just watching horror movies when I was a kid. But, there's way too many Stephen King movies for me to even, touch on. I'd be back and forth. There'd be a million. So we'll just do this. Here's the list of Stephen King movies. So anyway, yeah, everybody knows who Stephen King is, even if you're not into horror. I mean, it's just like a huge name. And but this movie was directed by Fritz Kirsch. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, and I don't care. But as usual, but there's so much to say about this. I don't know. I got to get into this because I'll end up talking about it I could talk about this movie for hours. Easy. But we have John Franklin as Isaac, probably the creepiest character of any movie that I've ever seen. Sure. And we have Peter Horton as Bert, who's basically like the main character, with his girlfriend, Linda Hamilton, aka Vicky. But everybody knows Linda Hamilton for Terminator 2, and she's in a bunch of other stuff that we're not going to get into. But you have Courtney Gaines as Malachi. He's also in The Burbs and a bunch of other movies. But when I think of him, I think of Malachi or the creepy dude from The Burbs, and those are the two most memorable to me.
Outlander! Get off!
But then we have Anne Marie McEvoy. I don't even know how that's pronounced, but I'll just throw it up here so you guys can understand my pain. But that's who plays Sarah's character, who's the little girl, and then Robbie Kiger as Job, the little boy. And those two, are big parts of the movie. So, and then there's like a bunch of extras and other small characters that I'm not going to put out there because I can't even really find that many pictures of them, and it's not worth it. But
Joby.
This movie has to be in my top 5 of all-time favorite horror movies, only because it's not like the greatest movie ever by any means, but it was just the right time and the place when I saw it when I was a kid. And it obviously made an impact because it went on to make, so many sequels. I don't even know how many they're up to now. You know, God knows. But there's a lot of them, and obviously a lot of people liked this movie when it came out. Now, the basis of the movie is, yeah, it's a town. You know, I don't want to go scene for scene because I'll be here all day, but there's a town in the middle of, I'm gonna say, it's called Gatlin, but I can't remember the state that it's in. It's Iowa or something. It looks like, but there's a doctor. You know, an intern, and you know, his girlfriend or wife. I don't even think they're married, but
Happy birthday.
we'll just say his girlfriend, Vicky, and they're driving across country to his new job.
Amen. Peanut butter and white bread.
There's no room for the college grant.
And he's a doctor, so, and they get lost in this town where it's basically abandoned, which maybe that's subliminally played a big part in my life. You know, I always love abandonment. That's why I still film it to this day on my other channel. I love going to abandoned towns, and probably watching this movie 500 times when I was a kid that might have played a small part in it in my head. But the town of Gatlin is, you think it's abandoned, but there are still children inhabiting it.
Praise the Lord! Praise the Lord! Praise the Lord!
And it's a cult led by Isaac, and Malachi is kind of his right-hand man.
Go to the old man. Make sure he tells them nothing.
And they murdered all their parents and all the adults and the police and everybody. The only person that they kind of let live is a mechanic on the outskirts of town who is supposed to redirect people away from the town, or it, you know, he's supposed to not say anything and keep his mouth shut. They have an agreement, or else, you know, he'll get dealt with like every other adult.
I never told him nothing. I swear it.
So when the kids turn 18, or I believe it's 18, when they turn into adults, they have a ceremony and they sacrifice themselves. And these, you know, when this couple were passing through the area, not even the town, but the area, one of the children that tried to escape the town because he didn't, you know, he wasn't about murdering people, and, you know, he was a normal child, I guess. He was trying to flee, and Malachi caught up with him and murdered him. And they stand his dead body up in the middle of the street.
Fred, look out!
And, you know, this couple ends up running into him, which you can imagine would be devastating if you thought that you killed the kid. But the guy's a doctor, so he knew that he was already dead. I wouldn't have been able to tell, I guess, unless, you know, you strip the shirt off and see the stab wounds, whatever. But yeah, he just kind of knows he was already dead. And then that's where the movie kind of takes off.
Oh,
But there's a lot of slowness to this movie, you know, like there are a lot of, you know, it's not fast paced. No movie from that era is fast paced, and hence why today's generation can't handle it, because they want instant gratification. It's too, you know, slow. They can't appreciate movies like The Shining and, you know, these masterpieces that have, you know, they take their time and they tell a story rather than, you know, having constant bullshit that just stupid filler all through the movie just to, like, you know, doesn't even make it scary anymore. It just makes it like ridiculous.
Blue man.
This movie was creepy back in the day, and you thought about this, like, could this actually happen? Like, if a bunch of radical, you know, you see how cults work. I mean, why couldn't there be a children cult where they're convinced that the parents are evil and they need to kill them? I mean, I feel like it probably could happen. A lot of kids kill their parents, but that's a whole other dark concept that I don't want to get into.
Question not my judgment, Malachi. I am the giver of his word.
So they go to this town because they hit this kid, and they end up getting into the abandoned town. And, you know, they end up running into Job and Sarah, and in this abandoned house, and they're in there playing games, and then they start exploring, and Vicky gets taken and captured by Malachi and some other kids. And ultimately, the husband's trying to, or the boyfriend, I should know these things. I've seen this movie 500 times. I don't think they're married. But the boyfriend, Bert, is basically trying to rescue Vicky. And so he goes to the cornfield, and that is where, like, probably the greatest, there's some shit that happens, don't get me wrong. The mechanic ends up getting murdered in the process. People get killed. And they show, the whole beginning of how they took over the town and murdered everybody in the diner, which is pretty crazy. But it all leads up to this ending where, basically Malachi hangs Isaac. He turns against Isaac and puts him on the cross in the cornfield.
Put Isaac on the cross. We will see how the Lord favors you.
And Isaac ultimately ends up being possessed by he who walks behind the rose. They keep talking about he who walks behind the rose. And I never understood that when I was a kid, because I was like, what do you mean a guy that walks behind the rose? They're talking about the devil walking behind the rows of corn. And they're waiting for his return. And they speak to him, and well, Isaac claims he does. No one believes him. And, Isaac's just this meek, leader. And then Malachi is kind of bigger and creepier, and he does all the dirty work and murders everybody.
Decide your fate. I am the Word and the giver of his laws.
So everybody starts just kind of following Malachi, because Malachi wants to take it his own way. So they hang Isaac up, he gets, possessed. Vicky ends up getting rescued, but then they have to battle the devil or whatever, the demon that is in the cornfield. And it's on fire, and they're trying to burn the corn down, and I guess that's the way to defeat he who walks behind the rose. That's what I gathered from it anyway. It's just a cool movie, and it all ends up working out, and they end up, the couple ends up kind of, I guess they want you to lead you to believe that they're adopting Job and Sarah.
Munchkins, huh?
Well, I don't know. Guys want to come live with us for a couple days?
Because they said that they can stay with them for a while, but I don't know if that actually happens, but they leave together. But there's a jump scare at the end because there's a creepy girl waiting for them in the car, and then she gets knocked out cold, and that's the end of the movie.
You must die!
But, like I said, there's so many sequels to this, and I can't even really remember them because this is the only one I really watched repeatedly. I believe the second one was okay, and there were some other good ones, but I think they just get shittier and shittier as time goes on, as most sequels do.
Not die. We go to him. The first night of our 19th year.
Anyway, most memorable moment to me is the end where, it's not the very end, but getting towards the end when Isaac is fully transitions into the demon, and he's talking to Malachi, and it's like the greatest scene. I mean, it sounds like a death metal, it's like a deathcore song. He's like, Malachi! It's probably the greatest scene in the whole movie. It definitely is.
Malachi!
And everybody's afraid of Isaac, and then they're like, man, and he's telling him, he's like, he wants you too.
He wants you too, Malachi.
Malachi, you bitch. And so, yeah. And then everybody's scared, and that's probably the highest point of the movie, other than when they, burn the whole... because they have to use a sprinkler system at the end. Well, it's supposed to be made for a sprinkler system, but they hook the gas line up to it, so they're spraying gas to burn down the cornfields, and that's how they defeat the demon. And if I remember correctly, Isaac definitely comes back in later sequels because like he's on the cover of some of them. So, and I mean, I know he's older, and you know, but that's pretty much that. And I'm gonna rate this. This is a strong 4 out of 5. It could almost be, you know, because it's one of my personal favorites. Time and place when I saw it, you know, it's one of my favorites, but it's still not perfect. It's not Return of the Living Dead. It doesn't have the comedic aspects in there. If it had some funny, weird shit, it would be a 5 out of 5. But this is a horror movie, like a horror thriller. There's no comedy to this. And it's well done. It was written by Stephen King, so come on. All these movies are free on Tubi. This is one of the better ones that are on there. Well, in my opinion, because it's one of my childhood favorites. But there are like better movies on, you know, there's like high-end movies on Tubi as well. But all these movies, the whole month of October, I have to spit it out every single time I make an episode because not all of you are following along with every single episode. So if this is your first time watching, all of these episodes, the whole month of October that I've been doing, we're on day 18. I'm dying here, people. This is a lot of work to do this every day. Literally my entire season, the entire month so far has been taken up by editing, filming, and research, and it's not, you know, it's not easy to do. So I hope that some of you appreciate it and, you know, follow along with all these movies because they're all free to watch. You don't have to pay anything for them. Let's get into the spirit here. Children of the Corn, it's awesome. Check it out. And that's about it. Stay creepy.